In boxing, there are certain fights that don't just crown winners and losers. They completely reshape careers. Some fighters walk away stronger, while others are never quite the same. Today, we're breaking down the fights that left permanent marks on some of boxing's biggest names. Whether it was taking a beating or simply making too much money, we're gonna dive deep into fights that changed their career. David Benavidez versus Caleb Plant. Caleb Plant was a slick and smart boxer who was very disciplined and always in tremendous shape. After losing to Canelo Alvarez in 2021, he bounced back with a brutal knockout win over Anthony Durrell. That victory reignited hope that Plant could still be an elite force at 168. But then came David Benavidez. Benavidez's relentless pressure, volume punching, and suffocating style broke Plant down as the fight wore on. Early in the fight, Plant's movement and jabs were sharp, but by the middle rounds, Benavidez was landing at will, forcing Plant into survival mode. The fight went the distance, but Plant took a lot of punishment. Mentally and physically, he was pushed beyond his limit. Since then, Plant's career momentum has stalled due to injuries he suffered versus Benavidez. He later returned in September 2024 against Trevor McCumbee, who dropped him in the 4th round, but won by a controversial TKO in round 9. Caleb's next fight would be against Jose Resendez, and the confidence he once carried seems shaken. He was taking too many punches and was nearly dropped multiple times. The once slick Caleb Plant looks like a man in the past. While he's not retired, his aura as a potential champion again was stripped away that night. Benavidez didn't just beat Plant. He may have ended his run as a serious title threat.
Bamboozling Vladimir Klitschko and by Fury. Oh, and there's a... He can't land that punch, and we saw it a moment ago.
Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury. Deontay Wilder will always be remembered as one of the hardest punchers in heavyweight history. But after his trilogy with Tyson Fury, he was never the same. Wilder came into the 3rd fight with determination to avenge his brutal TKO loss in the rematch. He even had Fury on the canvas twice in the 4th round, proving that his power was still real. But after that, it was all Fury. The Gypsy King mauled him, leaning on him and draining his energy and punishing him until the 11th round knockout. That fight took everything out of Wilder. Physically, he absorbed incredible punishment over the course of 3 grueling battles with Fury. Mentally, the defeat seemed to scar him. He returned in 2022 with a quick knockout win over Robert Helenius. But in 2023, he lost to Joseph Parker, looking hesitant, gun-shy, and a shadow of his former self. While many thought it could be ring rust, the same thing happened in his next fight. Versus Zhilei Zhang, he came out timid and not throwing. And then he got brutally knocked out in the 5th round. Wilder's aura of invincibility, the myth of the one-punch king, was permanently shattered by Fury.
Languishes there, and here's the Mayweather right. How many times have we seen this from Floyd Mayweather?
Marcos Maidana versus Floyd Mayweather. Marcos Maidana was one of boxing's most fearless warriors. His first fight with Mayweather in May 2014 was the performance of his life. Maidana swarmed Floyd, roughhoused him, and made the undefeated champion deeply uncomfortable. Some even thought Maidana deserved the decision. The rematch, however, was different. Mayweather adjusted, boxed smartly, and neutralized Maidana's wild aggression. The Argentine gave it his all, but the fight was cleaner, less competitive, and decisive. After those back-to-back losses, Maidana's hunger faded. He had made millions, and his body ballooned in weight. The Mayweather fights became his career's high point, but also its end. He never fought again, retiring young and overweight. For Maidana, Mayweather wasn't just his final opponent. He was the end of the road.
in 3 years. But Ryan told us this week he loves fighting southpaws because he thinks there's more ways to knock them out.
Luke Campbell versus Ryan Garcia. Luke Campbell was known as one of Britain's most technically sound fighters, a former Olympic gold medalist who had faced the likes of Jorge Linares and Vasily Lomachenko. He was respected, but also carried the label of nearly man, always competitive, but never quite winning the big fights. When he faced Ryan Garcia, it was seen as a crossroads bout, and early it looked like Campbell would finally get his moment. In round 2, he dropped Garcia with a clean left hand, shocking the young star. But Garcia got up, adjusted, and in round 7, delivered a crushing body shot that ended Campbell's night. For Garcia, it was a career-defining moment, but for Campbell, it was the end. He never fought again. Losing to a young, flashy prospect after giving everything seemed to extinguish whatever fire he had left. His career stopped there. Retired at just 33. Canelo Alvarez versus Billy Joe Saunders. Billy Joe Saunders had long been known as a slick, awkward southpaw. Undefeated, confident, and crafty, he prided himself on being a puzzle few could solve. But when he stepped in against Canelo Alvarez in a massive unification fight, everything changed. Through the first half of the fight, Saunders had moments of success, frustrating Canelo with movement and sharp counters. But in round 8, Canelo timed him perfectly with an uppercut that shattered his orbital bone. The injury was brutal and Saunders couldn't continue, and the fight was waved off. But even worse, it ended his career. He hasn't returned since, and most signs suggest he won't. The undefeated record, the slick style, the confidence, it was all taken away by that one punch. Canelo didn't just beat Saunders, he broke him.
Yeah, the accuracy, the speed.
And meanwhile, the countering.
It's astonishing that he's been able to be this effective.
5-year-old
Terrence Crawford versus Errol Spence Jr. This fight was years in the making. Two undefeated welterweight champions fighting for undisputed supremacy. The boxing world was split, but when the bell rang, Terrence Crawford made it one-sided. From the second round on, Crawford dominated. He dropped Spence 3 times, punished him with counters, and systematically broke down one of the most feared welterweights of this era. The fight ended in round 9, with Spence battered and beaten like never before. For Crawford, it was a career-defining night, but for Spence, it was a disaster. His chin, his aura of toughness, and his unbeaten mystique were all gone in one night. Since then, Spence hasn't returned, and questions about his health and motivation linger. That night in Vegas may have permanently ended the prime of Errol Spence Jr.
The way that Canelo...
Callum Smith just suffered the biceps injury. We've stated earlier tonight, Canelo loves to attack you.
Great punches, and Charlo's letting Canelo go too easy.
Canelo Alvarez versus Jermell Charlo. Jermell Charlo was a respected champion at 154 pounds, known for his explosive power and aggressive style. But when he moved up 2 divisions to challenge Canelo Alvarez for the undisputed super middleweight crown, it became clear he had bitten off more than he could chew. Charlo fought cautiously, almost timidly, as if fighting to survive rather than to win. He was dropped in round 7, but otherwise simply outclassed. Fans and critics blasted him for the lack of fire he showed. And since then, Charlo has disappeared. He hasn't fought again, and his name has largely faded from championship conversations. That night against Canelo didn't just give him a loss, it damaged his reputation. He went from being a feared fiery champion to someone fans accused of quitting under the spotlight.
From the southpaw trying to split the high guard of Tank Davis, under 20 seconds left in the opening round.
It's beautiful triple jab right there by Martin. Continue to circle him and...
Frank Martin versus Gervonta Davis. Frank Martin was one of the most promising contenders in the lightweight division. Undefeated, slick, and confident, he stepped into the ring with Gervonta "Tank" Davis, believing he had the style to outbox him and for a few rounds, it looked possible. Martin used his jab and movement to frustrate Tank early, even taking some of the first rounds. But Tank is a master of patience, and once he figured Martin out, the tide turned dramatically. By round 8, Tank unleashed a devastating combination that dropped Martin cold. The knockout was brutal, one of the most violent of Davis's career. For Martin, the loss wasn't just a setback, it was a reality check. The aura of being an undefeated contender vanished in one night. Questions about his chin, his resilience, and whether he could bounce back at the elite level immediately surfaced. Since then, his career trajectory has stalled. Frank hasn't been in the ring in over a year and have no upcoming fight. Davis didn't just hand Martin his first loss. He might have permanently changed his ceiling in the sport.
He just whisked the right hand past Berlanga's jaw right then. He missed him by an inch. Good right hand by Berlanga.
Edgar Berlanga versus Hamza Shiraz. Edgar Berlanga built his name on hype with 16 straight first-round knockouts to start his career. He was marketed as the next Puerto Rican superstar, a knockout artist destined for stardom. But as the competition got tougher, his flaws began to show. When he faced Hamza Shiraz, those flaws were brutally exposed. Shiraz outboxed Berlanga from the start, using his jab and reach to control the fight. Berlanga looked predictable, limited, and completely outclassed. In the later rounds, Shiraz's combinations overwhelmed him, leading to a brutal knockout. The defeat stripped away the hype that had carried Berlanga for years. No longer seen as a future champion, he was exposed as a fighter with serious limitations at the elite level. For Shiraz, it was a career-defining win. For Berlanga, it may have been the night his star power dimmed for good.
And he swarms Broner along the ropes. Grazes him with the right hand. Maidana off to a very...
Adrian Broner versus Marcos Maidana. In boxing, there are nights when everything changes. For Adrian Broner, that night was December 14th, 2013. Adrian Broner was supposed to be the next Floyd Mayweather. Flashy, undefeated, full of swagger, Broner already held world titles in 3 different weight classes by the age of 23. He had the skill, the personality, and the backing of Al Heyman and Golden Boy Promotions. But then came Marcos Maidana. Broner had just moved up to welterweight, defeating Paulie Malignaggi in a controversial decision. He was cocky, brash, and taunting anyone in his path. He believed he was untouchable. But Marcos Maidana wasn't there to play games. Known for his rough style, heavy hands, and relentless pressure, Maidana had already given fighters like Amir Khan and Victor Ortiz hell in the ring. Now under trainer Robert Garcia, he was sharper, calmer, and more dangerous than ever. The boxing world expected Broner to outclass Maidana. Instead, what happened shocked everyone. From the opening bell, Maidana came out like a wrecking ball. He bullied Broner, walked him down, and in the second round, landed a looping left hook that dropped Broner hard for the first time in his career. Broner was stunned, not just physically, but mentally.
Right in between.
Lands by Broner.
One of the central questions in this fight is and we're going to find out tonight because he's hit Maidana.
The swagger was gone. Maidana kept pouring it on, throwing power shots from every angle, making Broner fight off the ropes. By the 8th round, Maidana floored Broner again, this time with a thunderous left hook. The unthinkable was happening. The undefeated next Mayweather was being humiliated. Broner showed heart, finishing the fight, but the damage was done. Maidana dominated, winning a unanimous decision. For Marcos Maidana, it was the defining win of his career. It revived him as a top welterweight and earned him 2 massive paydays against Floyd Mayweather himself. But for Adrian Broner, the loss changed everything. Broner was caught on camera crying as he left the ring, his invincible aura shattered. He went from being boxing's next superstar to a fighter struggling to live up to the hype. After Maidana, Broner was never the same. He continued fighting, but his confidence and discipline were broken. He suffered more losses against Shawn Porter, Mikey Garcia, and Manny Pacquiao, and outside the ring troubles only worsened his decline. The Maidana fight marked the beginning of Broner's downfall. Boxing isn't just about wins and losses. Sometimes one fight can change everything. These fighters learned that the hard way. Some were broken physically and mentally, but all of them walked out of the ring different than they walked in. Because in boxing, one night can define your legacy or end it.